Namaskaram and welcome back to part 2 of the series on Parajumbles, Taming the Monster. My name is Karishma and I am your VARC coach. I have done part 1 on Parajumbles that covered the mandatory pairs and how do we go about arranging the sentences. So do watch that video for examples and a good understanding of the mandatory pairs and the basics that we did. Today, in this session, which is the second and the final part, I'm going to do paragraph flows with you along with one question each. And I will try and help you inculcate the skill along with me. It will be a good idea if you pause the video at every slide, at every question, and have a vague answer in your mind, anticipate the answer using a pen and a paper, and then you listen to my explanation. So I think that's the best way of making full use of this video. I will try and keep this as short as possible so that you have more time for practice. And like I said in the previous video, the part 3 of this video, basically the series has to come from your end, which means you are going to practice more and more questions and get better at it. Let's start without wasting any time. So we discussed this in part 1 that what are the basic guidelines. The first is that we will try and locate an introduction. If we can find it, awesome. If we can't find it, it's okay. We'll try and look for something which is conclusive. If we have a good conclusion, it's okay. If we don't find it, it's okay then too. Why? Because the paragraph could have been picked up from any random article in the world. And if it is being picked up from the middle of an article, it may have neither a good intro nor a good conclusion. So we're just going to make a few attempts, and if you find it, awesome. If you don't find it, it's okay. We will go on and notice the kind of paragraph it is. So is there a contrast? Is there a parallel idea mentioned? What is the kind of paragraph? Is it a question and answer thing? We're going to do that today, okay? And we'll spot the mandatory pairs and anticipate the logical sequence. Finally, whatever we have, we'll give it a final read. If there is a fight between a grammatical clue versus an idea-based clue, the grammatical clue will win because it is rule-based, whereas ideas are abstract. We will remember in the exam, as well as in the mocks and sectionals and practice, that we are not going to spend more than 90 seconds on any parajumble. Also, it is a good idea to attempt all parajumbles because there is nothing to lose, but not at the cost of time. So if you are unable to understand a parajumble and you find that out in 5, 7, 10 seconds कि मुझे समझ ही नहीं आ रहा है, just skip that question, okay? But if you can understand the question 90%, 80%, 85% is your comprehension, then attempt the question, keep close eye on the timer, and do not cross 90 seconds. All right, types of paragraph structures. These are the 7 structures that I'm going to explain. Learn how to identify them, and that will help you arrange the sentences smoothly. Okay, let's go to paragraph structure number 1, which is the cause effect structure. Cause effect structure मतलब A होता है तो B होता है, या A की वजह से B होता है. So A hence B, or A causes B. Paragraphs of this nature will normally contain defining words. तो क्या निशानी है structure की? How do you identify them? You might find a word like hence, because, causes, leads to, is the effect of, consequently, subsequently, and all of that. Usually you will see that the effect follows the cause. यानी cause पहले आता है, effect बाद में आता है. ज़्यादातर, usually, okay? In other words, the cause precedes the effect. Again, this is only a thumb rule and not a rigid one. You will have to apply it using your own discretion and in the context of the overall writing style of the author. अक्सर बच्चे पूछते हैं अगर flashback हुआ तो क्या करेंगे? The paragraph will give you a hint in terms of tenses or something. There will be some clue which will tell you that the examiner wants you to go from effect to cause. Otherwise, we're going to stick to the standard guideline of the cause first and then the effect. So अगर cause के बाद effect आएगा तो ही हम लिख सकते हैं this leads to. अगर effect पहले लिखा होगा तो leads to थोड़े ही आएगा. This was caused by आएगा. Right? So you have to concentrate on the other clues also. It's not a rigid rule, it's a thumb rule. Let's look at this question. This is a CAT question from 2003. I have deliberately removed the options and converted this MCQ into TETA for you. Let's try and attempt this together. You might want to pause the video before you listen to how do I do it. As I assume that you paused the video and you did it on your own, now I'll go about explaining how I did it. 4 days later, Oracle announced its own bid for PeopleSoft and invited the firm's board to a discussion. Furious that his own plans had been endangered, PeopleSoft's boss Craig Conway called Oracle's offer diabolical and its boss Larry Ellison a sociopath. Craig Conway. In early June, PeopleSoft said that it would buy JD Edwards, a smaller rival. Moreover, said Mr. Conway, half name, he could imagine pronoun, no price nor combination of price, any other condition to recommend accepting the offer, use of the article. On June 12th, chronology and early June, PeopleSoft turned Oracle down. Now, there are many clues in this question. यहाँ लिखा हुआ है 4 days later, यानी ये किसी के बाद आ सकता है. देख लेंगे किस चीज के 4 दिन के बाद की बात हो रही है. What is the incidence which is being referred to when I say 4 days later? This is a full name sentence. This is a half name sentence, which means B will in any way, in at all costs, come before D. Maybe immediately preceding, maybe not immediately preceding, but D cannot come before B. इतना पक्का है. E says on June 12th, PeopleSoft turned Oracle down. Turning down is rejecting. And we are talking about this proposal in early June when we are talking in C, where we say that PeopleSoft said that it will buy JD Edwards, which is a smaller rival. Now, what is the paragraph about? The paragraph is about Oracle and PeopleSoft. We are talking about PeopleSoft's boss, which is Conway, and we're also talking about Oracle, whose boss is Larry Ellison. So if you look at this passage, this guy Conway is mad at Ellison. Second sentence में लिखा हुआ है. Okay, why is he mad? This is an effect that Craig Conway is irritated. Why is he irritated? So this is the effect. Can we find a cause to it? So if you try to find the cause, you will see that C says that PeopleSoft in June decides that it will buy JD Edwards, which is a smaller rival. And then Oracle suddenly announced its own bid. This is also a clue for PeopleSoft, and invited the firm's board to a discussion. So PeopleSoft said that, okay, we'll buy JD Edwards. And on the other hand, 4 days later, Oracle said that, dude, we're going to buy you. And this is what is pissing off PeopleSoft's boss, who's Craig Conway. And then, of course, Craig Conway is making a statement like, oh, come on, you can't buy us. No price, no combination, nothing will make me accept your offer. And finally, this is leading to the rejection of the offer. So that's the basic kahani that is happening here. Let's start arranging. The first thing that has happened is that PeopleSoft tries to buy JD Edwards. After this, Oracle does something which is not okay. It says, we will buy you, which is PeopleSoft. This is the cause. C and A is the cause. The effect is PeopleSoft's boss Craig Conway is saying that this offer is diabolical. Diabolical is evil. Okay. And the boss is being called a sociopath. तो एकदम गाली दे रहा है. Okay. Finally क्या हुआ? Conway ने बोला कि कुछ भी उखाड़ लीजिए. BD is a pair again because of full name, half name. And it is also extending the idea forward. B में कहता है diabolical बोला, sociopath बोला. D में कहता है भाई कुछ भी उखाड़ लीजिए. Whatever price you pay me, whatever combination you pay me, you can't buy my company. I'm not going to accept the offer. And finally, he turns down the offer. He rejects it. So C, A, B, D, E is the arrangement. Pretty doable. There are pairs literally everywhere. There is a proper cause and effect relationship. There is a full name, half name pair. Tenses are helping us. Chronology is helping us. The offer is helping us. Use of the article. So what offer are we talking about in D? The offer which Oracle is wanting is Oracle wants to throw at PeopleSoft. So these are various clues which will help you mark the answer. Pretty doable. This can easily be solved within 60 to 75 seconds. Let's go ahead and do type 2. Type 2 is generic to specific. So usually, like I said, more often than not, it is the general guideline to live by. So you first talk about a general idea and then you boil down to an example or a specified idea. Again, picking up a CAT question, you might want to pause the video and solve it before you solve it with me. A says that since then, intelligence tests have been mostly used to separate dull children in school from average or bright children, so that special education can be provided to the dull. In other words is used for explaining something. Okay, so this is an elaboration of something. Intelligence tests give us a norm for each age. Intelligence expressed as intelligence quotient, which is IQ, and tests are developed to indicate what an average child of a certain age can do, what a 5-year-old can answer, but a 4-year-old cannot, and so on and so forth. Binet, which is some person, developed the first set of such tests. I don't know what tests, maybe IQ tests, because we read about tests here in the early 1900s to find out which children in school needed special attention. And then we're talking about a very, very general thing which says intelligence can be measured by tests. So if you see these sentences, C and E are talking about intelligence. If you compare C and E, E is the most general sentence. It's the most general idea that intelligence can be measured by tests. It introduces the topic of the paragraph. It is also the introductory sentence. So let's begin with E and see if we can make any pairs. So if you see, it says it can be measured by tests, and such tests were developed in the early 1900s by this guy called Binet. So now when we are talking about Binet, we are being very specific that who developed IQ tests for the first time, who developed these tests that can measure intelligence. So ED looks a good pair to find out which children in school needed special attention. और जब से ये हुआ, since then, intelligence tests have been mostly used to separate dull children from average or bright. Again, school का idea carried forward है, तो DA pair बन जाता है. And special education can be provided to the dull. So what was the purpose of the test? This is the cause, the first type that we did, and this is the effect, that finally we started using these tests so that we could decide at school that who needs special attention and who is not so bright and who is bright. Okay, so DA becomes a pair. So far so good. इसके बाद क्या लगना चाहिए? B में लिखा है, in other words, intelligence tests give us a norm for each age. Now this cannot come after A because age is first discussed here in this example. There are some things that 5-year-olds can answer, 4-year-olds cannot. This is an example, right? So this will come before intelligence, because then you can say that what is being given in C has been explained in B by saying in other words. So C says intelligence expressed as IQ, and tests are developed to indicate what an average child of a certain age can do. In other words, intelligence tests can give us a norm for each age. When you read the paragraph, you will realize that this is in perfect order. So always start with general, then boil down, narrow down to specific ideas. Always write cause first and effect later, unless the language of the question or the grammar of the question suggests otherwise. I hope you've understood these two types. So it's very important to realize कि पैराग्राफ का बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर क्या है. ये जनरल से स्पेसिफिक की तरफ जाने वाला पैसेज है, या ये कॉज इफेक्ट वाला पैसेज है, या फिर ये कॉन्ट्रास्ट दिखाने वाला पैसेज है. कॉन्ट्रास्ट में क्या होएगा? कोई टर्न अराउंड पॉइंट होगा. Okay, so there will be some turnaround point. How do we find that? You will usually find words like but, yet, however, despite, in spite of, as against, on the other hand, however, although, though, albeit. These are the various things which will give you a signal that, okay, this is a contrast being represented in this paragraph, and this will help you arrange the sentences. Let's do this CAT question. Pause the video, solve it for yourself. I hope you've solved it. Now let's see how do I solve it, and you can check yourselves. This is but in the industrial era, destroying the enemy's productive capacity means bombing the factories which are located in the cities. So we are talking about some destruction of the enemy's productive capacity. Okay, let's see what else is the paragraph about. It says, so in the agrarian era, so is usually representing a result of something. Agrarian is agriculture. If you need to destroy the enemy's productive capacity, what you want to do is burn his fields, or if you're really vicious, just salt them. So this is talking about revenge in agriculture. Yeah, that's the idea. In the information era, now chronology is important. Destroying the enemy's productive capacity means destroying the information infrastructure. So there is a contrast here. Agriculture के ज़माने में how do you destroy people? आप उनका खेत उजाड़ दीजिए, right? Information के ज़माने में how do you do it? आप उनका information infrastructure बिगाड़ दीजिए. So there is a clear contrast here. How do you battle with your enemy is a general sentence. It should come somewhere maybe in the beginning. We'll see where do we place it. The idea is to destroy enemy's productive capacity, and depending upon the economic foundation, that productive capacity is different in each case. Now again, this is general as compared to specific sentences like B and C, because B and C are giving you agrarian era में कैसे बदला लेते हैं और information era में कैसे बदला लेते हैं, जबकि E explain करता है कि हम बदला लेना चाहते हैं, enemy की productive capacity को destroy करना चाहते हैं. तो ये ज़्यादा general है. Okay, so I am again using type 2 and type 1 here. Also, there is a question which is being asked in D, and there is an answer which is being answered. This is the question gets answered here in E, if you notice. With regard to defense, the purpose of the military is to defend the nation and be prepared to battle with its enemy. So, if you see, we are talking about the enemy here, the enemy here, the enemy here, your enemy here, the enemy here, and battling with its enemy when it comes to defending a nation. So if you see, the best introductory sentence, even better than D, will be F, because this introduces the idea. It says कि जब डिफेंस की बात आती है तो मिलिट्री का काम होता है नेशन का डिफेंस करना और अपने एनिमी से तैयार रहना. आप कैसे अपने एनिमी से बैटल करते हैं? So D is an extension of F. So it's a good idea to start with F and then write D. कि डिफेंस में मिलिट्री का पर्पस है राष्ट्र की रक्षा, डिफेंडिंग द नेशन, बैटलिंग द एनिमी. हाउ डू यू डू दैट? हाउ डू यू बैटल विद योर एनिमी? आस्क द क्वेश्चन. वेयर डू वी आंसर द क्वेश्चन? इन ई. द आइडिया इज टू डिस्ट्रॉय द एनिमीज प्रोडक्टिव कैपेसिटी. Depending upon the economic foundation, the productive capacity is different in each case. What are the cases given to us? The cases given are B and C. पहले क्या आएगा, B या C? यहाँ लिखा है so in the agrarian era we had to do this, now in the information era we had to do this. So therefore the order will be B and C. Okay, but then A is not placed. A में लिखा है industrial era. So but in the industrial era, destroying the enemy's productive capacity means bombing the factories which are located in the cities. Chronology देखिए, agricultural, industrial, information. अगर इंडस्ट्रियल को यहाँ लगाएंगे तो गड़बड़ है, इसीलिए वापस जाके इसको ठीक करेंगे. अक्सर लोग सोचते हैं कि हमने कुछ गलत कर दिया तो हम ठीक नहीं कर सकते. मैंने जानबूझ के आपको एग्जाम्पल दिया है दिखाने के लिए कि यू माइट बी गोइंग रॉन्ग इन योर रफ वर्क. इट इज योर ड्यूटी दैट यू करेक्ट इट. So we will first talk about agricultural, then industrial, and then the information era. Right? So in the agrarian era, we destroyed fields, but in the industrial era, we bombed the factories. Now in the information era, we destroy information infrastructure. So F, D, E, B, A, C. A clear question representing contrast. हर ज़माने में कैसे enemy से बदला लिया जा सकता है का contrast. Let's go to type 4. Parallelism. In such kind of writing, you will come across two parallel points of view represented one after the other. Normally, you will find words like likewise, similarly, just as, second, equally, in the same manner, like this, similar to this. These are the words which give you a clue कि किसी तरीके का parallelism है. Let's try this question. I would want you to pause it. This is from an old mock. So try it out before you try it with me. This says it is this abiding struggle between openness and concealment that makes it possible to find valid, demonstrable new meanings in artworks in the course of history. To put it differently, art exists temporally as a multiplicity of singular, unique artworks, and moreover, their singularity is not ontologically identical, as shown in the case of films and literary works of art. Art's second paradox is that it reveals and hides at the same time. I remember reading about revealing and hiding synonyms here, openness and concealment. The first paradox of art is this, that artworks are singular. I remember reading about singular and multiple in two, and yet generically belonging to art in general. So if you see, I have found out that somewhere 4 and 2 look connected, and 3 and 1 look corrected because they're talking about similar ideas. Then this says this ties in with Heidegger's understanding of the artwork as an unresolved struggle. We can also see that we are talking about this abiding struggle here between the realm of openness and interpretability, and which resists interpretation and withdraws from scrutiny. ओपननेस एंड इंटरप्रेटेबिलिटी, जो ओपन है उसे इंटरप्रेट कर सकते हैं, ओपन टू इंटरप्रिटेशन है. कुछ चीजें हैं जो इंटरप्रेट नहीं की जा सकती, रेजिस्ट करती हैं, एंड दे विड्रॉ फ्रॉम स्क्रूटिनी, जिन्हें आप चेक नहीं कर सकते हैं. ऐसी चीजें कौन सी होती है? ढकी हुई चीजें होती हैं. यहाँ पर लिखा है एन अनरिजॉल्व स्ट्रगल, यहाँ पर लिखा है दिस अबाइडिंग स्ट्रगल. तो पहले क्या आएगा? 1 5 के बाद आना चाहिए. 5 शुड कम बिफोर 1. सो इफ यू ट्राई एंड अरेंज दिस, 3 and 1, which looks a pair, is now fighting with 5 and 1. So can I have 351 or can I have 315? You cannot have 315 because this is saying openness and concealment, disabiding struggle. Whereas in 5 it says an unresolved struggle. So a and an will come before the or this, right? We've discussed this in the mandatory pair, basic grammar. So therefore, this is not a good idea. It's a good idea to place 5-1. So this pair gets corrected here and it becomes 351. Did you see how did I correct myself again? So this is work in progress. This is how you do parajumbles, constantly improving your answer as you read the sentences. Can we start with the first paragraphs? Of course, we will not start with the second one. So yes, this is going to be the first sentence. The first paradox of art is this, that all artworks are singular, particular and yet generically belonging to art in general. तो पहला आर्ट का पैराडॉक्स क्या है कि आर्ट पर्टिकुलर है यानी सिंगुलर है, एट द सेम टाइम वो जनरल है क्योंकि वो सबको बिलोंग करती है. और ये बात कहाँ समझाई गई है? टू पुट इट डिफरेंटली, आर्ट टेम्परली एग्जिस्ट करती है एज अ मल्टीप्लिसिटी ऑफ सिंगुलर यूनिक आर्टवर्क्स and the singularity is not ontologically identical as shown in the case of films and literary works of art. तो ये एक्सप्लेन करता है कि देखो आर्ट सिंगुलर और जनरल दोनों एक टाइम पे कैसे है, यही इसका पैराडॉक्स है. पैरेलली वो आपको पैरेललिज्म भी है, कॉन्ट्रास्ट भी है, आपको दूसरा कॉन्ट्रास्ट देता है. क्या? आर्ट का सेकेंड पैराडॉक्स है कि आर्ट छुपाती भी है और कुछ कुछ दिखलाती भी है. ये आइडिया फर्दर कैरिड फॉरवर्ड है कि हाइडेगर की जो आर्टवर्क की अंडरस्टैंडिंग है उसमें एक एंड मतलब एक एनी पर और वन को रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं आर्टिकल्स ए और एन. अनरिजॉल्व स्ट्रगल है और फाइनली ये अबाइडिंग स्ट्रगल है ओपननेस और कंसीलमेंट के बीच की. ब्ला ब्ला ब्ला. ओके, सो अगेन a good question requires a little amount of understanding, some amount of patience, looking at the structure of the paragraph, making the pairs, arranging them, making improvements as you go on reading the sentences, and voila. Let's go ahead and do type 5. Idea explanation, elaboration, completion, transformation. एक सेंटेंस है जो आइडिया प्रेजेंट करेगा और दूसरा सेंटेंस उस आइडिया को फर्दर एक्सप्लेन करेगा, एलैबोरेट करेगा. वी ऑलरेडी डिड दैट here when we were doing this. D was explaining F कि question कैसे आगे चलेगा, डिफेंस में हम कैसे बैटल करते हैं अपने एनिमी को. Let's try this CAT question. Pause the video, try it out on your own before you do it with me. Although there are large regional variations, it is not infrequent to find a large number of people sitting here and there and doing nothing. Okay, so we're talking about people sitting free. Once in office, they and people receive friends and relatives who feel free to call any time without prior appointment. Okay. While working, one is struck by the slow and clumsy actions and reactions, indifferent attitudes, procedure rather than outcome orientation, and the lack of consideration for others. So now, this is talking about working. Okay, and you can see people's reactions are clumsy, slow, indifferent. There is a lack of consideration. They have nothing to do with outcome orientation. So this is again negative. This is also a negative sentence. People who keep sitting and do nothing. This is also a negative sentence. Talks about people who's calling at any random time without any appointments. Even those who are employed often come late to the office and leave early unless they are forced to be punctual. So again, we're talking about work culture again. Work is not intrinsically valued in India. Pretty generic. Also looks like a good intro maybe. Quite often people visit ailing friends and relatives or go out of their way to help them in their personal matters even during office hours. Oh, so this is explaining what do people do at work. So this entire paragraph is somewhere talking about work culture in India. Therefore, the introductory sentence to me looks like E. So work is not intrinsically valued in India. How do we find that? Where is this further elaborated? Where is this explained? This is explained best here that there are large regional variations. Regional variations किसकी? इंडिया की. तो इंडिया में ना काम का ज़्यादा महत्व नहीं है, ऐसा पैराग्राफ में लिखा है, मैं नहीं कह रही हूँ. तो रीजनल वेरिएशंस हैं, तो किसी सिटी में कम, किसी में ज़्यादा, शहरों में और गाँव में फ़र्क है, मेट्रोपॉलिटन सिटीज़ का माहौल अलग है. It is not infrequent to find a large number of people sitting here, there and doing nothing. So then regional variation से भी पेयर बनता है और ये आइडिया फर्दर एलैबोरेटेड है ए में. अगेन दिस इज फर्दर एलैबोरेटेड कि हमने बोला कि भाई लोग फालतू बैठे रहते हैं, लार्ज नंबर ऑफ पीपल कीप सिटिंग हियर एंड देयर. यहाँ तक कि जिनकी नौकरी लगी हुई है वो भी लेट आते हैं और जल्दी चले जाते हैं तब तक जब तक उनको बायोमेट्रिक के नाम पर पंक्चुअलिटी के लिए फोर्स ना किया जाए. आइडिया इज बीइंग एलैबोरेटेड अगेन. और तो और क्या करते हैं, ऑफिस आवर्स में रिश्तेदारों से मिलने चले जाते हैं. Quite often people visit alien friends and relatives or go out of their way to help them in their personal matters, even during office hours. Okay. Once in office, they receive friends and relatives who feel free to call anytime without prior appointment. So B needs to be placed and C needs to be placed. While working, one is struck by the slow and clumsy actions and reactions, indifferent attitudes, procedure rather than outcome orientation, and the lack of consideration for others. Now, this is winding up all the issues and therefore looks like a good conclusion. So I am left with the placement of B. So B says एक बार ऑफिस आने के बाद वो ये करते हैं. तो हमने पहले लिखा था कि लोग बैठे रहते हैं ए में, फिर हमने लिखा डी में कि जो एम्प्लॉयड है वो भी टाइम से नहीं आते हैं. ठीक. फिर हमने एफ में लिखा था कि लोग विजिट करते हैं ऑफिस आवर्स में. तो इसके पहले हमने यहाँ लिखा कि ऑफिस आवर्स में घूमने चले जाते हैं और फिर जब ऑफिस आते हैं तो उसके बाद फोन पे लग जाते हैं. तो देयरफॉर सी हटाकर हमें वापस पहले बी लगाना चाहिए और उसके बाद सी आना चाहिए. सो लाइक आई सेड, the improvement has to happen as and when you are solving the question. तो अब आप पढ़कर देखिए. ए में लिखा है कि लोग फालतू बैठे रहते हैं, people keep sitting idle. D says the ones who are employed are also not serious. Then what happens? Even in office hours, they keep visiting here and there. Once they are in office, they are on the phone. When they are working, once in office is also connected with while working. So B and C becomes a pair. You will see that they are slow and clumsy and they are indifferent and not bothered. So winds up the idea and EADFBC becomes the answer. So this is a complete story. So idea, explanation and elaboration is another kind of paragraph that comes in the exam. Let's go to type 6. Chronology समझिए आप, बहुत important है chronology समझना. Like I said in the previous session, chronological order simply means time. This is a very good question from a previous mock. Let's try and understand it. You might want to pause the video and try it out on your own first. This is one image colorized by Amaral, breaks down all barriers between past and present of a devastated Damascus in 1925, taken in the aftermath of rebellion against French occupation. As the technique spreads and I don't know what is it about, while we begin to think of monochrome images. Monochrome is black and white, mono plus chrome. Mono is single. Chrome is color, so monochrome is black and white, single colored. As more authentic like vinyl records. Vinyl records are the huge records that you play using a gramophone. It could be 2018, very weird sentence. Colorization affects the viewer emotionally. The world looks richer as if black and white images imprison and purify their objects. I remember reading about monochrome images here, so black and white. I also remember about reading something authentic and pure in these two sentences. I also can see that we are now verging towards a contrast. So this says, or will we come to see colorization? So then, 2 is giving me the idea that should I treat monochrome images as more authentic? We are saying in 4 that black and white images, the world looks richer when it is colored, and black and white images look as if they are purifying their subjects and confining them, imprisoning them. So idea of purification and coloring is giving me the pair 4-2. Also, it says the technique. What technique? Colorization. So colorization affects the viewer emotionally. दुनिया रिच लगने लगती है, ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट इमेजेस तो सब्जेक्ट्स को प्योरीफाई कर देती हैं. जैसे जैसे कलराइजेशन का टेक्निक बढ़ रहा है, एज द टेक्निक स्प्रेड्स, तो क्या हम मोनोक्रोम इमेजेस को ज्यादा ऑथेंटिक चीज की तरह देखने लगेंगे? वैसे ही जैसे हम पायरेटेड गानों के जमाने में और स्पॉटिफाई के ज़माने में विनाइल रिकॉर्ड्स को ऑथेंटिक और एंटीक समझते हैं, क्या उसका वैल्यू बढ़ जाएगा? और विल वी सी colorization as the fulfillment of historians' fundamental task to recreate the past as it really was? Contrast is given in 2 and 5, or is the hint. And is also a hint because colorization का idea carried forward है, तो 4-2 बहुत solid pair है, 2-5 भी बहुत solid pair है. तो 2 में हमने बोला कि जैसे जैसे टेक्निक बढ़ेगी मोनोक्रोम इमेजेस को ऑथेंटिक मानने लगेंगे क्या? और 5 में कहता है या फिर कलराइजेशन हिस्टोरियन का ड्रीम टास्क हो गया. क्या है हिस्टोरियन का टास्क? पास्ट को रिक्रिएट करना. पास्ट को रिक्रिएट करना एक जनरल आइडिया है. स्पेसिफिक एग्जाम्पल पास्ट के रिक्रिएशन का डेमास्कस का दिया हुआ है 1925. एमआरएल ने इसको इमेज को कलराइज कर दिया है और ये इमेज जब कलरफुल हो गई है तो पास्ट और प्रेजेंट के बीच के सारे बैरियर्स घुल गए हैं. दे हैव ब्रोकन डाउन. और ये इमेज एक्चुअली 1925 की है, फ्रेंच ऑक्यूपेशन के टाइम की। लेकिन जैसे ही हम इसको कलर करते हैं तो बैरियर्स टूट जाते हैं। तो ये इमेज कब की लगने लगती है? क्रोनोलॉजिकली 2018 की लगने लगती है। सो क्रोनोलॉजिकली 1 and 3 become the pair, and the remaining pairs have already been explained to you. So beautiful question. You can take up till 75 to 90 seconds and get this answer right. Let's go to the last type, the easiest question and answer. We've already done one example. You might want to solve this before you solve it with me. Indians and Pakistanis are the same people. Oof, sounds like a good intro. The idea of India is stronger than the Indian and the idea of Pakistan weaker than the Pakistani. Okay. Not broader than one, so not a good intro as compared to one. Why then have the two nations, definitely coming after India and Pakistan, because that's the two nations we seem to be talking about, moved on such divergent arcs over the last 6 decades? So maybe there are some divergent arcs which are given here. Then we're talking about India has progressed into a modern nation, occasion, ally hampered by backward forces. Pakistan is regressing into a medieval society with a smattering of modern elements. This is giving us the comparison between India and Pakistan. Multi-religious, multi-ethnic, secular, democratic India was an idea that belongs to the future. One-dimensional Pakistan was a concept borrowed from the fears of the past. Again, is a contrast. So 4 and 5 are talking about India-Pakistan comparison. One is saying that we are the same people and then asks a question, why then? अगर हम सेम ही लोग हैं, इंसान वहां भी इंसान, इंसान वहां भी इंसान, तो जब इंसान इंसान ही है तो फिर दोनों नेशंस की दिशाएं अलग क्यों हो गई है? So general idea 1, elaborated in 3 and putting up a question. Question क्या है? Why have the two nations diverged on different arcs? Such divergent arcs explained नहीं है. इसका आंसर क्या है? क्यों हम लोग अलग अलग हो गए हैं? क्योंकि इंडिया में the idea of India is stronger than the Indian. Pakistan में the idea of Pakistan is weaker than the Pakistani. तो इंडिया में we are valuing India over everything else. In Pakistan, the idea of being a Pakistani and religion involved is more important than the idea of the nation. Where is this carried forward? This has been carried forward in 5. Multi-religious, multi-ethnic, secular, democratic India was an idea that belongs to the future, past. One-dimensional Pakistan was a concept borrowed from the fears of the past. So this is how it originated. This is giving us the background of what has gone wrong with India and Pakistan. And then finally, chronology, we will talk about the present tense. So India has progressed into a modern nation. This is the cause. 5 is cause, 4 is effect. I'm using all the things that I have taught you up till now here. Hampered by backward forces, whereas Pakistan is going back, regressing, opposite of progress, into a medieval society with a smattering of modern elements. पीछे जा रहा है पाकिस्तान, थोड़ा मोड़ा इधर उधर छोटा मोटा मॉडर्न एलिमेंट देखने को मिलता है, जबकि इंडिया मॉडर्न हो गया है, थोड़ा बहुत बैकवर्ड फोर्सेस उसको पीछे होल्ड करके रखती हैं. So 1, 3, 2, 5, 4 becomes the arrangement. I want all of you to start noting today onwards the kind of the passage, the mandatory pairs. Try to locate the intro. Try to locate the conclusion. If you're able to find the intro, good. If you're able to find the conclusion, good. If you're unable to find it, don't worry. Start writing whatever pairs you have. I want to explain you one more thing. So when you start writing the pairs, I'll use this slide to write this. Just listen to me very carefully. कभी कभार हम ऐसे ऑप्शंस में फंस जाते हैं जहां पर 4, 1, 2, 3 है, राइट, या फिर 4, 1, 3, 2 है. When I'm caught in an option like this, तो बच्चे क्या करते हैं? 4, 1, 2, 3 अच्छा लग रहा है या 4, 1, 3, 2 अच्छा लग रहा है? 4, 1, 2, 3 अच्छा लग रहा है, 4, 1, 3, 2 अच्छा लग रहा है. तो लाओ 4, 1, 3, 2 अच्छा लग रहा है, चेप दो आंसर, आगे बढ़ो. फिर कहते हैं मैम मैंने जो सोचा था वो गलत हो गया, मेरा एक सेंटेंस इधर का उधर मिसप्लेस हो गया, एंड देन एवरीथिंग गोज रॉन्ग. That's not how you think. Be sane, keep calm, take a deep breath, and then decide 1, 2 is a better pair versus 1, 3 is a better pair. You can also see 3 is a good conclusion versus 2 as a good conclusion. This is also something that you can check. 2, 3 makes more sense as a pair, or 3, 2 makes more sense as a pair. These are the 3 things that you can check. And then finally you can decide what reads better, what sounds better, what is good as a better as a paragraph, and then mark your answer. Don't get frustrated. Sometimes you'll be able to mark pairs की 5-4 पक्का साथ आएगा, 1-2 पक्का साथ आएगा, 3 का प्लेसमेंट यहाँ हो नहीं सकता, तो या तो यहाँ आएगा या यहाँ. तो चेक करो कि 3-1 अच्छा है कि 2-3 अच्छा है, 3 कंक्लूजन अच्छा है या 2 कंक्लूजन अच्छा है, 4 के बाद 3 लगाना अच्छा है या 2 के बाद 3 लगाना अच्छा है. So there are multiple things, that can be checked, and you should use them. The only thing is that you have to make sure that you are not spending undue time on the question. How much time should you take to leave a parajumble? 10 seconds. नहीं समझ आ रहा, कुछ बुद्धि नहीं काम कर रही, just type your favorite number and go ahead. Type your favorite 4-digit number, okay? Using 1, 2, 3, 4. समझ आ रहा है, attempt करो, 90 seconds लगाओ. बहुत ही ज़्यादा लग रहा है कि बस अब हो ही जाएगा 5 सेकंड में, तो 90 का 95 चलेगा. इससे ज़्यादा टाइम नहीं लगाने का. This will be a recipe for disaster. So this was a much demanded video, and I have tried my best to give you good examples, cover everything in detail, give you all the theory. This is absolutely free, so I request you that you help me and the channel by subscribing, by liking, by sharing it with your friends, whoever is preparing for any entrance exam. Parajumbles come everywhere. Let me know your feedback and suggestions. I'm hoping to hear from you, and looking forward to seeing you very soon with lots of practice questions. I hope you're taking your mocks and taking good care of your health. I will see you very soon in a fantastic session. All right. And I hope that this was helpful to you. Thank you. Let me know if you liked it. Have a good day ahead. Take care.